Hello world, welcome to the table of ranking. I haven't done one of these in a very long time. I think last time I did one of these I ranked Eggman, which was just not an Easter video, surprisingly enough. It was just a video that I decided to do. But today I'm back. This is the ranking of the Atari consoles. It's early, so I got some coffee. This is not the first thing I'm posting for Atari Week, Atari Week 2023, but this is the first thing I'm recording for Atari Week 2023. And I don't know, I thought it would be fun to start off with something like a table of ranking, just in order of me recording videos before I do any reviews or anything like that. It's just because I haven't done one of these in a while, and yeah, I just kind of want to talk about what I feel about the Atari hardware overall. I might have missed a few things here. I don't think I did. If I did, I'm sorry. There's probably like a few add-ons and stuff I didn't include. I wanted to really include like the base of Atari's legacy. So of course we have the 2600, the classic Atari VCS as it was known back in the day, but now it's known as the Atari 2600. This is what you probably think of when you hear Atari. It's the classic joystick and button. I got the 5200, which was the failed follow-up to the 2600. The 7800, which was like the 8-bit competitor with NES and Master System. The Atari 400, which is more of a home computer. That's probably the one here that I have the least to say about, but I still wanted to include it in some way. The Atari Lynx, which was Atari's underrated handheld, misunderstood handheld maybe. The Atari Jaguar, which was clearly the best console of all time. I wanted to include the Atari Flashbacks, which I'm pretty sure I have one. I'm pretty sure I have one in this. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I have one like by my computer desk. I do. It's tangled. I don't know if you can see it. It's tangled up, but this is the Flashback. These little shitty plug and plays. I kind of wanted to include those in the ranking because, like, for a while, that was what the company was to a lot of people, was like these little knickknacks you'd buy. And then, lastly, we have the Atari VCS, which is Atari's current home console computer thing, which I do have. So, I wanted to kind of rank all of these. Like I said, I didn't include, like, the Jaguar CD, because who gives a shit? That could just be lumped in with the Jaguar. And there's probably some home computer stuff that I didn't throw in here either. But I think everything's pretty well represented here, and I want to go. First up, of course, is the Atari 2600. Again, probably the thing you think of when you think Atari, other than maybe like arcade games, is the 2600 because it revolutionized gaming. It was the first home console to really bring that experience to the living room. Now, it's very different than like gaming now, or even gaming a couple of generations after this. Even like the NES, it's very different because the 2600 was seen more as a home arcade. It was a video computer system. It was a home arcade. The concept was that you don't have to go down to the arcade anymore and pop quarters in to play Centipede. You can play Centipede in your living room for free. And it's not the most powerful hardware. Of course, it came out in 1977, so how can it be? But there's a lot of love and support for the 2600. People look back on it fondly. There's still a huge I think it's like probably one of the biggest homebrew communities. People make games for this thing all the time and sell them online. I've bought a few of the homebrew games sold by Atari Age. And they've been really cool. People have gotten some really cool visuals out of this thing. I think it's just interesting for people just to stick with like this simplistic hardware. I love exploring the library for this thing. It's probably the console that I have the most games for and the most reviews for on this channel because it is so much fun just to play one of these easy to pick up and play games and try to understand what I'm doing, what I'm looking at, why it is the way it is. I'm giving 2600 an S. That should be obvious because it is like the grandfather of gaming. I think there's more nostalgia for NES. There's people like I Got King's Brian who, wets his panties over an NES box. But the Atari still has a place in the gaming legacy. Next is the 5200. This one was a failed follow-up to the 2600. I think I get what they were trying to do, but they didn't. In my opinion, they didn't make the 5200 special enough. The only thing special about the console was its stupid controller. It had it was a joystick with a number pad, because I guess people were super into phones or something at the time. I don't know. Number pads were, I guess, the way we were going with gaming, which thank God that's not the way we went with gaming. But, yeah, the problem I have with the 5200, besides the awful controller, is the fact that a lot of the library is kind of copy-paste. And I get what they were doing. They were being like, hey, look, here's Missile Command on the 2600, and then here's Missile Command on the 5200. Doesn't it look so much cooler? And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to buy that game again. I don't want to play that game again. Just give me a new game, And I think that's the big flaw with the 5200, is that I think it was a directionless console. I think it was just trying to be more powerful, and that's it. It's not terrible. It's definitely not the worst thing on this list. So I'm hesitant to put it at the bottom. But I would have to probably give it a C? I'd probably give it a C. I have played one. I have explored the library. I don't have one. I am currently... This is one of the only Atari consoles that I'm really actually looking for still, is a 5200. And who knows, maybe if I get one, some charm will happen with the console, and I'll just be I'll be there with it, and I'll experience it firsthand, and something will click in my brain. But with the experience that I have right now, I think C is a good spot for it. Next is the 7800. I do have a 7800. It is actually the console that I use for a lot of Atari stuff. I have two 2600s. One is the original, wood grain one. One is the Sears Telegames version. The version sold at Sears. If you love Sears, all you Sears fans out there. And then I have a 7800. I used to have a 2600. It was the Vader. But I sent that to Teddy. So Teddy has that. And he probably hasn't played it in 4 years or something. But yeah, 7800. What is there to say about 7800? It was the competitor to the NES and Master System. Do I think it's better than either one of those consoles? Probably not. But it does have some cool features. I think the thing that really saves the 7800 to me is the fact that it is backwards compatible with 2600. It could be one of the earliest cases of a console being backwards compatible, which is pretty cool. Don't quote me on that, but it could be. I love the fact that I have basically a great 2600 that also plays its own special library of games. Now, some of the things I said about 5200 is echoed. There are some repeat games like Centipede, like Miss Pac-Man. But honestly, I think a lot of the versions... I think, the version of Centipede, the version of Asteroids for 7800 are pretty fucking good. And they have, simultaneous co-op and stuff. So that's pretty cool. The controller we got over here... I actually don't even have one because I don't really like them. But they're, weird joysticks with buttons on the side. In Europe, they got, an NES-style controller. I don't get why we didn't get that one. That seems like the more logical choice. But you can still just use a regular old Atari joystick if you want. So it's fine. The only issue I really have with the console is probably the fact that since it is based off of the 2600 architecture, graphically it looks better, but the sound is not. The sound is still garbage. But I think the 7800 depends on how you're coming toward it. How you're approaching the console. If you're approaching it as the third iteration of Atari, it might be lackluster. Like, that would be a B. If you're approaching it as, like, I want a 2600, a really good 2600 that also plays its own games, that's like an S. So I'm going to put it as A. I'm going to put it in the middle. Because I think both sides have their value here. Like, as being an original console, it is better than the 5200, but it's still not great. Being a 2600 device that also has its own games, that's great. So yeah, I'll put it in the middle of what I would give those two. I'd give it an A. This is the one I have the least experience with. This is the Atari 400, and I'll just use this to represent the whole Atari home computer line. I haven't messed with a lot of those old home computers. I have played some of the games. They seem choppy. They seem cool, but kind of choppy. Like, I played like I think it was the 400 version of Food Fight, which is a great game on 700, by the way. That's like my favorite 700 game is Food Fight. And I don't know, it seems kind of rough. But I imagine at the time this was a good way to get your console into homes, as being more than a console, being like a home computer device. Like, look, Mom, I don't just play Crystal Castles on this thing. I also do my homework, you know. I don't know. I'm going to give it a B. Honestly, I just don't have enough experience to go either way. I'll put it in the middle. Atari Lynx. The Atari Lynx is Atari's handheld, and to be honest, they were passionate about this thing. The team behind the Lynx were very passionate for the device. I don't think anything at that time could topple the Game Boy. I mean, the Game Gear as well. Nothing could topple the Game Boy in terms of success. Even though this device, much like the Game Gear, was more powerful and more impressive. I think just the Game Boy had such a foothold on our culture at the time that it was hard to really come close. But the Lynx is surprisingly good in terms of the software library. It's got some good titles. In terms of the hardware, it's pretty good. I have played one. Again, don't own one. I would like to, but this is one of the ones that's probably a little too pricey for me. But I would like to own one eventually. I do think it has a pretty good library of games. There is some sameness, a few arcade games, of course, the Atari console, but there's a ton of original titles for the Lynx, and it had pretty decent support. Also, like the fact that it has like an ambidextrous thing where you can like flip it over and play stuff. It's so weird. That's cool. They had 2 different revisions of the console. I don't know. I like the Lynx. I'm gonna give it an A. I don't think it did anything too wrong. I think it's just, again, if you're looking back at handhelds from that era, I don't think anybody's gonna say that the Lynx was better than the Game Boy. Simply because it's the Game Boy, you know? Atari Jaguar. Oh boy. Here we are. This was Atari's 64-bit console. Really, it had like 2 32-bit processors, which I guess technically made it 64-bit, but it really wasn't. It wasn't like an N64 or anything like that. It was on the same power level as like the N64 or PS1. Came out before those consoles, though. It's an interesting case of Atari trying to jump back into the gaming landscape after not really being there. They were there with the Lynx, kinda, but not really being there home console-wise since the 7800. And I do think that it has a few interesting games. Tempest 2000 is like one of the best versions of Tempest. Sadly, for the longest time, it was stuck on the Jaguar. Now you can play it on the Atari 50 collection if you want to. But yeah, the controller looks like garbage. Again, this is one that I don't own, and I definitely am probably never going to own one, because every time I come across one in the wild, they are expensive. Very expensive, and I don't think it's worth my money. I think a lot of the people that I've seen that like have them and have decent collections for them are people that bought them back in the day, or maybe bought them when they were discounted. Now they go for quite a bit. My buddy Ash, I think, had one in his store for a little bit over at Retro Rewind, and that's how I got to like really look at it and hold the controller. And I've played a few of the games on the console. Honestly, D. I think this was a wrong step for Atari. Sorry, Jaguar. You have some cool ideas. Some of the games look kind of impressive. Tempest 2000's fucking great, but yeah, you had no chance. Sorry. The Atari flashbacks, I think, are interesting because for damn near close to 2 decades almost, this was like probably how people played Atari games. I think the company that started doing these was like Jack Specific, maybe. I could be wrong on that. And then I think At Games took it over, and then I don't know who's doing them now because I don't buy them. I have one of them. I had one as a kid. It was a 7800 themed one, and then I have a 2600 themed one now that I bought back in like 2016 or something. And I mean, look, they're exactly what you want them to be. They're cheap little things you buy for $20-30 at a Walgreens. You plug into your TV and you play a few Atari games. You know, they're more meant as like a nostalgia trip. I do think they have some advantage over like game collections. Maybe not Atari 50. Watch my review on that. I think that's a fantastic collection and like a showpiece for the company's history. But in terms of like collections on like the PS2 or you know, that era, I do think this has an advantage because you do get some semblance of like the Atari joysticks and stuff, which is kind of important for some of those games. Like C. I'm gonna give him a C because you can't take them seriously, but they're still better than I'd rather play one of these things than probably most of the Jaguar library. Lastly is the Atari VCS. It is the current Atari hardware, and I know they've teamed up to do like other plug and plays recently, and they've teamed up to do like some of the 1UP arcade cabinets, which I actually would like to have one of those. I would probably need to get rid of one of mine, 2 that I have, to fit one in my office because I don't want to buy a million fucking arcade machines. But this is really what Atari themselves are doing, not really licensing out their name. They are doing the 2600 Plus this year, but that's more of just like a weird 2600 project that plays cartridges. This is a new project, and it's so amazing to me how this was like kickstarted in like 2017 or around that time, I believe. And it came out at the end of 2021. I got mine last year, at December of last year. And it's amazing to me that still, it's almost 2024. And I can still say to people like, hey, what have you been playing? And I'm like, oh, I was playing Aka R on my Atari VCS. And they go, oh, like the old, like the 2600? And I'm like, no, like the new Atari thing. And they still have no fucking clue. It happens all the time. And I do want to do a review of my VCS for Atari Week. That'll probably be near the end of Atari Week, so stay tuned for that. But the VCS is like a home computer console hybrid. That's the way they kind of sell it. I think the marketing's kind of messy on what it is exactly, but I get the idea behind it. They want to merge like the 2600 with like the Atari 400, which is, you know, like the computer and the console. And I haven't used the computer side. I believe it runs off Linux, but you can get Windows to boot as well if you want to. I haven't messed with any of that stuff because like 2 months after I got the thing, I got a gaming laptop, so why would I even bother? But I have just stayed within the Atari OS itself and played the stuff that they put up on the store. people were kind of worried about this thing because when it came out, support, like developer support, was kind of low, and Atari themselves were only bringing over like a few games at a time. But it seems like it's gotten more and more popular. Atari stopped manufacturing this, actually. I believe they just cut the deal they had with the manufacturer ran out, and they have such a big back stock of these units that they haven't found a new partner for the production of the console and stuff. But it's fine. I was worried about that when I heard about that like February, I think. I heard about that, and I was like, oh shit, are they gonna like cut support for the thing after I just got one? And luckily, no. Since I got it, I think this has been the busiest year for this thing. Has been like, they have put so many games out on the device. Indie developers support the hell out of it. Atari themselves have been putting out games frequently. It went from a point to where at the beginning of the year, I was like buying a game or so a month because it was like that's all they would put out. And then now it's like they put out so many games per month, per week almost, that I'm like, I can't buy all these games. It's been fun. It's been fun. I like using the joystick controller and the modern controller. I like the fact that I can use it as like a streaming box. So I can stream like Netflix or whatever from it. I can stream Game Pass, Amazon Luna. What's the other one I use on it? GeForce Now. And I believe you could do Stadia, but Stadia is dead, so you can't do Stadia anymore. But it is nice for that as well. I imagine that using it on like, it's a pretty small, compact, all digital unit. So I imagine that taking this places, well, I don't imagine it, I've done it. Taking this places with just like the unit and the modern controller or something in a bag with you somewhere, plugging it up and being able to like stream Game Pass straight to it. It would be way more convenient than actually like taking a whole Xbox with you because it is so small. I like the VCS. I think it has problems, but I like it. I want to talk more about it in its own video and like review. But in terms of ranking, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. I don't think it has the legacy of the 2600 or the impact of the 2600. But I do like it. I'm going to give it... I'm somewhere between A and B. Right now, I think I'll give it a B. I think it's a B. I think it's very middle of the road product. I wouldn't recommend it over like just like an Xbox or a PS5 or something, of course. But if you get one on sale and you like retro games and you like tinkering with like computers and stuff, it could be worth your time. So there we have it. That's my tier list ranking for the Atari consoles. Atari systems, Atari things. So S is the Atari 2600. I still feel very good about this placement. A is the 7800 and the Atari Lynx. B, oddly enough, is the computer side of things, is the Atari 400 and the Atari VCS. C is the 7800 and the Atari Flashback plug-and-play systems. And D is the poor Jaguar. I'm sorry, Jaguar. Look, Jaguar fans, don't attack me. But your console kind of stinks a little bit. It could have been better. Look. You could tell me in the comments all day how good Alien vs Predator was on the Jaguar, and I'll believe you. I'll believe you all day long. But I wouldn't take this over like a PS1 or something. You know, I don't, or even a Genesis or Super Nintendo. I wouldn't play this thing over that. Yeah, thanks for watching. Enjoy Atari Week. I don't know what all I have planned yet because, like I said, this is the first thing I'm recording. Thanks for joining me for Table of Ranking. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my coffee and work on some more Atari Week videos.